Hello, everyone. I'm so very happy that you are here joining us. And I will launch us into graphic novels, The Architecture of Meaning. With me here today, we have Sam and Kathy and myself. So today, the learning objectives are learning the science behind graphic novels as a tool for literacy, gaining an appreciation for the genre, and becoming familiar with some stellar examples. I've brought some really great books to look at when we get to the end. We're going to talk about what graphic novels are. We're going to unpack some preconceptions and misconceptions. And we're going to write the story, and we're going to do some drawing. So I had sent out an email, but I'm going to take this moment to remind you, you are going to want to have some paper and something with which to draw, a pen, a pencil, a marker, a flare pen, whatever works well for you. This is a great moment to gather up supplies. And then we are going to introduce ourselves. So usually when we all get together at one of these, the introductions are who we are, where we teach, but we want to go a little bit deeper because we're really looking at the narrative behind the story. So we're going to introduce ourselves with some additional information, and then we're going to invite you to put some additional information about yourself in the chat. So we're going to start with Sam.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sam Jenkins. I work with the Learning Through Technology team. So here are some photos that help describe who I am. The top left is a photo paddleboarding at night, which I think shows that I'm adventurous and I really love paddleboarding. It's a photo of my wife that I took. We went out to see the sunset, and then we came back after dark. My wife and I, we met at Sunday River. She's from Costa Rica. She was doing a work and travel program, and we met there. So we love to ski. The bottom left photo is a picture of Costa Rica. Costa Rica is a beautiful country that has volcanoes, beaches, and jungle. So I like to put this photo of the tropical rainforest just because I think it's great, and it's not just a place to vacation, but a place to explore. The bottom middle photo, the picture of the U-Haul, is because we just purchased our first house, so I'm now a homeowner. And then finally, the last photo on the right is a picture of me reading outdoors because I love reading.
Hey, welcome everybody. My name is Kathy Bertini, and my role here at the department is the Interdisciplinary Instruction Team Coordinator. My stories and my pictures about myself is I've been in education for over 35 years, started as a classroom teacher and went into administration and curriculum design. And some of the photos that you're seeing right now is I have two wonderful children. I have a son and daughter, and this year I was blessed with my first grandbaby, Audrey, down there by the tractor. I split my time between Western Maine. I have a tree farm in Western Maine, and my husband and I, who's up there by the side by side, we share our time in coastal Maine as well. And we are just so grateful for being able to see all parts of our state and really experience the outdoors. Oh, and then my third child is our Boston Terrier. As you can see, that's Miss Winnie, who commands a lot of our time. So a little snapshot of me, and I welcome everybody here today.
I'm Heather Martin. Before joining the Department of Education, I was an elementary school librarian, which remains one of my most favorite experiences of my life. And that photo is of a student of mine who had written a book that we published, and we were putting it on the shelf in the library for other people to check out. And that was a lot of fun. So literacy is a firm belief of mine. And we can also see I have some horses. They take up a lot of my mental space as well. They're fantastic. I love to hike and be in the outdoors. And often when I'm hiking in the outdoors, I have those dogs with me as well. We are up to 3, which is insane, but we love them all. And I'm a mom. That bottom picture is my youngest son graduating from college. with our big extended family. And I do make a mean strawberry shortcake. I also I did my undergrad work at College of the Atlantic in Bar Harbor, where I focused on elementary education and really started to think deeply about literacy and what students need to be successful throughout their whole rest of their lives. And then I did my master's work at Harvard, where I focused on museum studies and museum education and how to use object-based learning and place-based learning. And all of that factors into everything we're about to talk about, including the horses and the dogs. Everything about who we are informs who we are as educators and students and human beings. So I would love to invite all of you to drop a few things in the chat that explain who you are, that goes beyond just the title or where you teach, because we would love to get to know you better. And you're about to use that information in the very first thing we're going to do together. Today, there's a mixture of information coming at us and hands-on trying stuff out. There's going to be some drawing. So feel free to drop it in. Sam is watching the chat and can let me know when someone has a question or when there's something we want to explore a little more deeply. So we're going to start with that self-portrait. And I know sometimes grown-ups panic at that idea. It's funny, kids never do. Kids are like, sure, let's do some drawing. So I want to encourage you to tap in to that side. We are going to be using a really specific technique to do our self-portraits. We are using the Brunetti style, which I will explain more about in a moment. And with graphic novels, I would like to remind you, some of them are really, really beautiful. So we're looking at a page from the Golden Age, which I just think is some of the most stunning art I have seen in a while, and also a page from This Was Our Pact, which is a really evocative graphic novel as well. So sometimes the art is really high art. However, I have seen kids shoot milk out their nose from reading Big Nate while drinking their milk in the lunchroom. And it does not get any better than that if you're talking about literature to engage. Big Nate, by the way, is a Maine-based author, Lincoln Peirce. And these books are wildly popular. They sell in the millions and kids love them. And as you can see, the style is really different. I'm not sure that anyone would consider this high art, but it does the job. It communicates what it's meant to communicate. And today we are relying a lot on the book Making Comics by Linda Barry. This is a fantastic book. She frequently teaches at the collegiate level, and if you have a chance to find a copy of this book, nab it for sure. And one of the things within this book is the Brunetti technique, which we are about to use for our self-portraits. So Ivan Brunetti, fantastic illustrator, and he has this very specific way of drawing people, and it takes a lot of the pressure off. So I hope everyone has their paper and pen or pencil or marker ready. You're going to first draw a basic frame. It can be as large or as small as you want. Sometimes smaller is better. It gives you a really contained space within which to work. You're going to add your name at the top and today's date. Give a thumbs up when you're ready. I've got Sam watching, and he'll give me a thumbs up when everyone is set to go. All right, so if you've got your frame done, you're gonna just do some really basic shapes next. You start with an outsized circle for the head, just a big old circle. You don't need to worry about facial planes or anything, just a big old circle. And then you add in this little gumdrop-ish shape for the body, some squiggly lines for arms and legs, those little snowball hands, some shoes, fingers, some details to the face, your hair. Give me a thumbs up in the chat when you're ready for the next bit. I love the gumdrop body. It's very satisfying to draw. All right. So now for the coup de grace, you're going to take 3 minutes. I will watch the clock. And you're going to add in a detail or 2 or 3 that makes this self-portrait clearly you. Some small detail that communicates to the rest of the world that this is you in the self-portrait. So I am looking at the clock and you may begin. About 30 more seconds. All right. So what I would love is to hear from all of you. What was it that you chose to add that made your portrait so clearly yourself? If you want, go ahead and drop it in the chat, but if you want to just come off mute and let us know, that's great too. We're going to take a couple minutes just to share out what that little drawing exercise was like and what was the key detail. All right, we have a chat. What's going on in the chat, Sam?
It looks like we have some folks that like coffee, books, and guitars. Others holding a book, another book with a silly design and a sweater. Some more guitars and books, walking dogs, a beard, RVs, mountains, tennis shirt.
Oh, I love all of that. And it really illustrates that moment of trying to decide how are you going to encapsulate yourself in this one tiny little image that will communicate clearly, this is me, this is who I am, this is representative of the idea that is me. So thank you all. I'm hoping that there's a way that I get to see everyone's self-portraits at the end because I just love them. And it's a nice way to limber up and get the hand and the mind engaged, working together, especially because that is a lot of what we're going to talk about when we start to explore why graphic novels are so powerful with readers and emerging readers. So thank you all. Now, one of the things about graphic novels is that it's never too long when you start talking about them before somebody says, they're not real books. I'm guessing a lot of you have probably heard this in the past, and I certainly did as a librarian. And obviously, because I'm doing this presentation, you know that that is not my stance on it. But we are going to build this wall of misconceptions. And what I would love from all of you is for you to take this moment and just put in the chat every negative thing you've ever heard about graphic novels. I've heard just today, I've heard people say, oh, well, you know, maybe they're too childish or they're too simple. So take a moment and drop in all the things you've heard into the chat, and Sam will make sure that we capture them all because we're going to circle back and talk about them later.
Well, I'm seeing some in the chat. Some folks are saying they're cartoonish, or no, you're not using that type of book for your book report. These kids are only looking at pictures and not actually reading. They're not on grade level, or they're for people who can't read. Nobody wants chapter books anymore. They don't have enough story to them.
Yeah, these are all things that I have heard before as well. So thank you for sharing those. If you've got more, keep them coming. Sam will keep looking at the chat, and we will circle back to address them all later on in this exploration of the graphic novels. But first, if we're going to talk about graphic novels as actually being a help and a support for literacy, we should spend a moment talking about literacy itself and how is literacy built. And this image, we have the fully flowering, it's actually false Solomon seal for those of you who are botany lovers out there. And the other image are the seed pods for false Solomon. So we're going to think for a moment about how is literacy built. And here we have two side-by-side elements, one looking at the big five of literacy and one looking at the big five of plant life. And Kathy, do you want to chime in and talk about building literacy?
Well, like what is needed for germination to happen, we recognize that in order for literacy to develop, it has to have all of these elements that are essential. So it has to have the vocabulary, the phonemic awareness, the phonics, and the fluency and the background knowledge. So what we're going to get into is we're going to look at each of those elements and align them of how graphic novels support the development of those elements in when using this genre. So we'll get right into what the graphic novels consist of. Heather, back to you.
And one thing that I think is so important just to remember as we think about the big five of literacy is that much like the elements of the plants, they are co-creating and they happen at the same time. So just as if you took this false Solomon root seed pod and gave it a month worth of sunlight, but nothing else, or a month worth of water, or a month worth of just soil, but no sunlight, no nothing else, it wouldn't take root and it wouldn't sprout and put forth. And the same is true of the building elements of literacy. All of these are equally important. All of them are required to produce a interested, competent, engaged, and literate person, but they don't go sequentially. They're co-creating and co-developing. So thinking about what graphic novels are and how they will support that. First, it's really good to have a working definition of a graphic novel. They are stories written and illustrated in the style of a comic. So not incorrect to say that they are comics. They're often really vivid illustrations that combine with short bursts of text, often presented in a series of rectangular panels. Sometimes there are other shapes that work their way in there. The story unfolds in a clear sequence. It's often action-packed. They're often very funny, but as we will explore today, not always. They can be fiction, They can be historical fiction or fantasy or straight up comedy, fairy tales. I've seen Shakespeare redone in graphic novel form. I've seen the classic Greek myths redone in graphic novel form. Or they can be nonfiction. They can be history, science, biography. We're going to see some examples of all of those coming up. And although sometimes there are superheroes involved, that is not a requirement to be a graphic novel. And you can see here that I've given you some sources, and those will be available to you as clickable links later on as well for more reading and more research. There is an explicit connection to reading motivation. I know, Kathy, you love the explicit connection. Do you want to talk about that?
Sure. So they're especially appealing to readers who may not pick up a more traditional book on their own, by reducing kind of the cognitive demands when they first get into a graphic novel. Often they're very inviting to our reluctant readers or struggling readers, and especially boys who are drawn to the lively storylines, illustrations, and the smart but limited text. And they are crucial, or we're seeing a connection of building reading confidence.
They are indeed. And visual literacy. The pictures in graphic novels are often really expressive. They're sometimes very simple, but they manage to be really rich and communicative at the same time. They involve big clues about the character and the plot. And what I think is so important for emerging readers, they inspire close looking, and they inspire making connections and inference. So if you see an emotion come across a character's face, you don't necessarily need to read an entire paragraph about what that character is feeling. You've got it. And it can propel the story in a really different and exciting way. And some, such as Owlie, which I have brought with me today, and The Adventures of Polo, are completely wordless. So the pictures have to carry the whole story. And one thing I will encourage us to think about as we have readers who are struggling, and sometimes it's because reading is difficult and a challenge. Sometimes it is because English as a whole is a brand new concept. These wordless books offer an area to be completely on the level with all of their peers and get the same out of the story and be able to talk about it afterward and compare notes and see what you think about the book's concept and plot, which is really exciting and meaningful. And there's a strong story structure. So they have easy to follow plots, and there's a first this, then this, then this, and the end. There's a lot of sequencing skills that are built in, and the chunking and the use of borders allows emerging literates to conceptualize the story plot in discrete chunks, which is helpful when they go to create their own narrative and their own story. They have a sense of the structure that they need to create for themselves. And word learning. Oh my goodness. There are so many words inside graphic novels for emerging readers. They are often sophisticated, and the pictures help carry the meaning along. So if you're not sure what a certain word is, you have additional context clues to get you there. And they are really good at the appreciation of storytelling. A lot of these stories are ones that the students get deeply involved with, and some of them continue over many, many volumes. And so you follow a character over many years. In terms of vocabulary, they're just so incredibly great for building vocabulary. We have this quote from Edutopia about the visual nature of comics leading to both verbal and word level vocabulary and meaning making. Reading.com notes the connection with the manageable size of the text chunks. It's not intimidating. It's not page after page after page of paragraph after paragraph after paragraph. It's a discrete chunk that you can engage with and then move on to the next one. And one of my absolute favorites, the University of Oregon did a study that scanned word content. And much to many people's surprise, graphic novels have 53.5 rare words per 1,000 on average, which is a greater rate of rare and unique words than adult fiction. And so they actually are considered to be incredibly valuable in building a rich and comprehensive vocabulary. And with phonics, they're fantastic because they have all those visual context clues. So if there's a new or unknown word, they can go right there. And there's high interest. And Kathy, do you want to chime in on this?
Sure. We know that the visual contextual clues help the readers predict and confirm those unknown words. They, as you stated, they are manageable text chunks. So the speech bubbles contain that brief conversational language that they're able to take apart. They often support phonics by offering a high interest content. Those engaging stories motivate children to persist through those challenging words. And lastly, we know that the repeated exposure to those common words appears frequently across the panels, and they can make inferences as they go across in those graphic designs.
And then, of course, there's comprehension. Do you want to speak some about this?
Sure. So when it comes to comprehension, comics and the graphic novels are helpful rather at building that schema, eliciting that background knowledge, locating those concepts with wider conceptualizations of a range of words and ideas. So it's always meaning making as they're comprehending the storyline and connecting it almost in that dual coding where they're looking at the text and the visuals and making stories come to life in their schema.
And we know that all of those things are just scratching the surface. So I'm going to pause and give some time for all of you to chime in, either in the chat or by unmuting to say, what else? What else have you observed about graphic novels that connects with literacy skills and with readers becoming really strong readers?
Another pro of the graphic novels is the rich dialogue that it contains too. So that rich dialogue is always is important in strengthening that comprehension and also that expressive fluency that is required of reading.
Yeah, absolutely.
One teacher uses a graphic novel alongside Frankenstein to support students' access to the dense text of the original. Nicholas Patterson mentioned, when students create their own stories, it builds their imagination. What next?
Yeah, I love both of those comments. Thank you so much. Frankenstein, that's such a good example because, yeah, it gets you right in. The ones that I've seen of Shakespeare are absolutely brilliant too. Shakespeare written in the way that it was with iambic pentameter can sometimes be really intimidating. But if you have it drawn out like a play, but one where you can move at your own pace, the characters aren't speaking too fast, you're able to read it and catch up. Just really, it's a really neat way to engage with the text.
And also, Heather, how about like the development of vocabulary for the tier 2 and tier 3 folks when you have that integrated academic vocabulary as well as the disciplinary specific vocabulary that's often found in the graphic novel?
Oh, yes, absolutely. So in the book that I mentioned, Making Comics by Linda Berry, there's this amazing quote, which I love, which is all about how originally drawing and writing were the same. When you were first learning how to write your name, it wasn't a common thing for your hand to do. So instead of simply writing your name, you were really practicing the fine art of drawing that specific letter. And that drawing and writing were united. And somehow, when we get used to it, we start thinking of them as different things, but that in a really deep and profound original way, they are the same. And that works a lot within the human brain. And there's now some really cool scientific links to the way that that worked evolutionary in our evolving brains as well. So here we see one of my all-time favorite things. This is a cave painting of a bison. This particular bison was done about 22,000 years ago and is inside a cave in Altamira in Spain. And these links will take you directly to the site if you want to learn more about them. And these will all be coming to you. So you can do a deep dive and explore these things if you want to. I love them. Then we have Red Cow and First Chinese Horse in the caves of Lascaux, France. These are about 20,000 years old. And one of the things that I think is really mesmerizing is that the location of these paintings speaks a lot to their original use. They tend to be deep within the cave and in places where acoustics are different, and where if you were drawing by torchlight, which you would have to do, the legs become animated and the animals look like they're moving, which is, I think, just absolutely magical. Black Bull is also from Lascaux, France. This is the Hall of the Bulls, which contains many of the things we were just looking at. And my absolute favorite, large black stag. I would give a lot to be able to stand in front of this in person. I think he is just magnificent. And then this is the earliest one we know of so far. Of course, there are always new discoveries being made, so we might still discover something earlier. But this cave drawing is of a pig with hands that are done with a splatter over it. And this is on Sulawesi, Indonesia. And this dates back to 44,000 years ago, which is just absolutely astonishing. So the pig is done in one technique and the hands are done in another. The pig is applied sort of the way that we would paint on a canvas, and the hands have had the pigment sprayed over it, most likely by spitting over the hands. And scientists are thinking a lot about the techniques and what people were doing and what people were trying to say. But I want to first hear your thoughts on what is the connection between cave paintings and literacy. So feel free to unmute or drop it in the chat.
Well, again, it's that connection between the story making, right? The visuals are telling the story, and it's giving that place of storytelling and meaning making. So when you're showing those cave paintings, I'm formulating a story in my mind about what could have happened based on those graphics that you're sharing, and I'm inferencing, I'm sequencing, I'm analyzing, I'm all doing all that rich literacy connections to make meaning. So I'm creating a schema on what the story might be being told in that cave painting. Yeah, we do have some in the chat that talk about forms of communication, pictures that tell stories, how people are telling their stories, the symbolic thinking about how we might not know everything about what they meant. So we are seeing a lot of themes and a lot of threads about the meaning making and storytelling and communication.
Oh, I love all that. I mean, my own imagination goes to late nights, and sitting around and telling the story of the hunt or of a migration. And we have no way of knowing because we weren't there, but it fires my imagination in ways that I enjoy. However, this next part just completely captivates me. There is a study out, it was done by MIT, and it was published in National Geographic in 2018. And scientists now believe they have found an actual link between the symbolic thinking required to do the cave paintings and the formation of language within us as a species. So there are scientists arguing that the formation of these drawings are required for the kind of thinking that evolved into speech and storytelling. And so the drawings might be the absolute base of literacy as we know it, which I just am captivated by. So that study is there if you want to link on it and learn some more and examine the scientist thinking, because of course we always love to take apart a source and check it out. But now we are also going to limber up a little bit with another drawing exercise. So I'm going to give everyone a few moments to gather some paper and some pens or pencil and marker. If you don't have them right handy, or if you use the one that you had, you're gonna want one decent sized sheet of paper. So give me a thumbs up or drop a note in the chat when you're ready. All right, lots of thumbs up. Excellent. So with this sheet of paper, you're going to first fold it in half the long way, or hot dog if you're an elementary school teacher. And then you're going to fold it in and in the other way, or hamburger, so that when you unfold it, you have 6 segments on your paper. Now you can either leave these just as creases in the paper, or if you prefer a border, feel free to outline your box. And this drawing exercise, which happens to be one of my absolute favorites, is called Faster, Faster, Faster. So I'm pulling up my stopwatch because we're going to need it for this. So the purpose of this exercise is partly to loosen up your drawing muscles and get yourself in the flow of creating a graphic image. And the other purpose is to have your brain start working on the reductionist idea of communicating a symbol. So we are going to be drawing the exact same thing 6 times in increasingly short amounts of time. We're going to do a cat today. So the first time we do the cat, I'm going to give you 60 full seconds to draw the cat, which sounds like nothing, but by the end, it will feel like an eternity, because the next one we're going to do 45, and then 30, and then 20, and then 10, and then 5. Just 5 seconds for a cat. So we're going to limber up with the 60-second one. Pencils at the ready. You may begin. We're about halfway done. I should have you doing this, Kathy. And time. All right. So you might want to label it in the corner that that's your 60-second version. Get ready. Here comes your 45-second cat. You may begin. We're about halfway. And time. That's your 45-second cat. All right, here comes 30 seconds. Are you ready? You may begin. Halfway. And time. All right, now it gets real. 20-second cat. Ready? Begin. Halfway. Time. Okay. 10-second cat. Ready? Begin. Halfway. Time. Okay, and here comes the quickest one of all. 5-second cat. Begin. And time. All right. So now I really want to know, feel free to drop in the chat or come off mute to tell me, A, what happened for your brain during that exercise? What did you experience? What does your cat look like? In fact, if you want to share them on the screen, that would be really cool. And any other thoughts you had about the process itself?
So some people have said that their initial thought was, what do I do? Or the cats, they got increasingly smaller and less detailed each time. For the last panel, someone just wrote the word cat. My cat had less and less details as the time went down and went from a full cat to a face. Thomas, enjoyed the 5-second one the most. Lawrence mentioned he might need some drawing lessons. The 5-second cat looks like it has some sort of deformity and a missing ear. And Thomas brings up, no pressure to be perfect, more impressionistic. And then Nicholas is asking us, what makes a cat a cat?
Things hard. That's it exactly. Oh my goodness. I love everything that just happened there. And the 5-second cat is the favorite. Yes. When I did this, I found that the less time I had, the more I liked the end result. My lines got a lot freer and a lot looser. And it made me really think about what details I needed to include to make it a cat while leaving out all the other stuff. So, and when I think about the cat that might have a deformity in only one ear, I think right there you've got a character. Like the cat with one ear, that's a story right there. Like, what happened? What's going on with this cat? As opposed to a perfect cat, which might not elicit a story behind it. So I loved all that. Does anyone want to add anything else? Because I want to hear all about your cats before we move anywhere else. All right, I'm going to try and find a way to collect images of all these cats because I really want to see them. And this can be any object. And it's a really fun thing to do with students too, because it gets them laughing, it gets them relaxed about the process of drawing, and it gets them relaxed about the process of storytelling, because you can then pick a panel, any panel, maybe it's your 30-second cat, and create a story about that, just that one little panel. So it can serve as a really fun prompt and jumping off point, and it can also serve as a way just to get their bodies a little bit freer in working within a frame and creating something without the fear of judgment or pressure or it not being perfect or right. So this is a really fun exercise to do. I actually made my college-age son do it when he was home. And first he groaned and moaned, and then by the end, he absolutely loved it. And he loved his 5-second cat, which was just a face. And that was the one that made him happiest. So yeah, that was. Thank you all.
Heather, I've also seen it used for character development. If you're taking that first cat to where you've gone from the 60 seconds to the 5 seconds, you can really tell the story, like you had said, about what that cat looks like missing the ear. And it's a nice place to kind of lean into that sequencing and character development and story plot if you have a struggling or you just need a place to start developing plot.
Yeah, it's so exciting to see what comes of it. And we have some time for a break. Yeah, we'll take 10 minutes. Welcome back. I have been loving catching up on some of the conversation around the faster, faster, faster exercise that we just did. as well as some of the thoughts about the wall of misconceptions and some of the ideas that are out there about graphic novels. So I'm looking forward to digging into that with you a little bit. We are going to spend a moment looking at what the science has to say about graphic novels and do a deeper dive into the research. But as we think about doing the research, we're going to first revisit the wall of misconceptions so we have an idea of what the ideas are out there that we want to dig in on. Convoluted sentence, but so yeah, okay, the wall of misconceptions. No, you're not using that type of book for your book report. I've definitely heard that one myself. Kids are only looking at pictures and not actually reading. Yep. They're for people who can't read. I've heard that too. And by the way, they are also for people who can't read. And that's one of my most favorite things about them. Where I was teaching, we had a lot of students who were coming from other countries and who had no English at all. And graphic novels were often the first bridge between that student and myself as a way to communicate. And they felt seen and they felt welcomed. And they knew that the library was the place for them to come and be. So they might be for people who can't read, which I think is fantastic, but they're for everybody else too. They don't have enough story to them. Heard that. Don't teach proper sentence, spelling, grammar, etc. They're easier than real books. They're cartoonish. Nobody wants chapter books anymore. They read quicker, so they lack the depth of literary experience and are less of a challenge than a long chaptered novel. Okay, these are all fantastic statements out there that I have definitely heard. And so here we have some research, and you will see the lovely, amazing, wonderful Julia Child in the corner. And that is because I'm definitely pre-serving some of the research to you. If I were doing this with students who wanted, for example, to say why they should be allowed to use graphic novels for a book report, I would help them and scaffold them and structure some of their research, but I wouldn't necessarily just hand them a full thing. But we only have so much time today, so that is what we're going to do. I have here a whole bunch of sources, and Sam is going to drop them in the chat. Oh, they're in the chat. Excellent. So we have one article, The Allure of Graphic Novels, another, The Benefits of Graphic Novels, Why They Count as Reading, 3 ways that graphic novels benefit kids. Just a bullet note on that. That one is put out by Scholastic, and of course, Scholastic sells books, so I always just like to note that. But still, they're thinking about it. A recent article in Harvard, What is Driving the Decline in U.S. Literacy Rates? Navigating Literacy Challenges, Fostering a Love of Reading. The research behind graphic novels and young learners, literacy and the graphic novel, using comics and graphic novels to support literacy, and don't underestimate the power of graphic novels for the classroom. So using all of these, we're going to think about our wall of misconceptions again. And I would love for you to think about one of these in particular that you would like to tackle, or maybe it's one that didn't make it on the wall. Maybe a thought has come to you, something that you've heard that you really would like to tackle. And we're going to make that the focus of the research. So we're going to take a few minutes, and I was thinking 10, and we'll see if that's enough, or if you need more, feel free to chime in on the chat if you're like, actually, I'm ready to come back, or I need a little bit more time. And we are going to dig in using this information or any of the links that I've given you to tackle those questions. Chime in on the chat if you need for anything else. And we're going to do our research.
Okay, Heather, so I tackled the one about basically the simplicity of it. They're cartoonish. I am going to drop in the chat what I found is from an article by Morrison. When students read visual narratives, the activity in the brain is similar to how readers comprehend text-based sentences. However, when students learn to read graphic novels with an analytical eye, the depth and complexity are added to the reading process. So that kind of breaks down that wall that of their simplistic or cartoonish nature. So
Yes, absolutely.
All right. From the chat. Oh, no, that's Kathy. Sorry. Okay, now we have one. Thomas, they are not easier than real books. They are more complex because they go beyond the world level literacy. They are more likely to be read and reread than a chapter book by reluctant readers.
Absolutely. As a librarian, I will just say anecdotally, people definitely do still want chapter books. Chapter books fly off the shelves as well. So I don't think the graphic novels are replacing them, but they are a really lovely entry point. So if a chapter book is intimidating, there's a beautiful graphic novel, and then maybe you graduate to chapter books. Maybe you continue reading them both at the same time. Some of my strongest readers loved graphic novels, but what I really loved was seeing students who are struggling feel like finally there was a book for them and that they too were welcome to the world of the reader.
Thomas added that they are also diverse and encompass every kind of genre and type of writing. And Belinda mentioned, I used the Allure resource, and again, it speaks about how complex they are, and yet I really do love that they are also accessible to the struggling readers.
Yes, to all of that. And it's so magical how they are both approachable and complex at the same time. Yes.
I'm going to drop in the chat, Heather, another one that has to address the misconception about they don't teach sentence and syntax and the semantic structure. So dropping in about they do that with the elements of the storytelling as well. So.
Excellent.
Nicholas brought up a point. They are cartoonish to create a simplified way to enter into an idea and expand upon meaning and imagination. The space for this that the writer creates for themselves and is mirrored and expanded upon by the reader and becomes a connecting point of experience for all reader, continuing the expansion and retelling the story in multiple ways.
Yeah, absolutely. There was a student that I had who had recently experienced his own family's conversation at the border. He was Passamaquoddy, and there is not supposed to be a border for the tribal nations. They can go to Canada and back. And that had not been his family's experience, and he wanted to discuss that. It was hard and it was intimidating. And as pure luck had it, there was a new book out called Borders. And it was set in a different part of the country, but it was the exact same experience. It was a family who was neither Canadian nor American being asked to declare their citizenship at the border. And the embarrassment of the kid when his mom simply refused, growing into an admiration for his mom as she declared who she was. And there's nothing about that story that is simple or easy or one dimensional. It opened up an awful lot of conversations, but it did it in a way that no one felt on the defensive, and everyone felt like they could partake in the conversation. And that's some of the magic of graphic novels. Do feel free to keep adding if something else, if you're working on a thought or if you're still typing, but I'm going to move us into looking at some of the books themselves, because that's one of my favorite parts, the books themselves. So at the beginning, and I can't see myself, so I'm hoping folks will let me know if it's in frame or not in frame. At the beginning, I mentioned this book. This was Our Pact as one of the ones that has really beautiful illustrations. This is written by Ryan Andrews. And this book it's done almost exclusively in the same shades of indigo and purple and dark. And it incorporates some nightmare elements. And there's some fantastical creatures. And then there's some things you might expect to see. And it's a really profound story about friendship and about what do we owe the people who are on the journey with us, even if you don't like them and don't necessarily want them as your chosen friend? What do we owe to each other as fellow humans? And it's absolutely gorgeous. This book won all kinds of awards, and I absolutely understand why. But I also want to point out there are moments of really dense, complex text that absolutely do rely upon grammar and sentence structure and can be challenging, but there's so much context given in the images that it allows struggling readers to still come along with it. And the nightmares are really interesting. The students that I was teaching at the time engaged with the nightmares in a really deep way. It made the scary stuff manageable, which my conversations with them about this were just amazing. This was in the Maine Student Book Award list for 2020 to 2021. One more time. Excellent.
Wondering if you stop sharing, then you can have the thing.
Oh, that's a good idea. Oh, brilliant idea. So, what a great idea. We're going to stop sharing the slide. Ah, now I know what I'm showing you. That's what, oh, I can see all of you. That is so lovely. Okay, so this was our pact. And by the way, there will be book lists coming up. So feel free to write down the titles as I say them, but there are also book lists coming up. Oh, and in fact, maybe, Sam, could you capture the titles in the chat?
Yeah.
This one was also referenced in some of the quotes from literacy experts. Owly. Owly is one of those books that has 0 words whatsoever. It's all pictures, and it's amazing. This is one of those ones where students can get into some really rich, deep conversations about what's going on and what a character is or is not saying. If you have a student who is new to the country and new to English, this is such a lovely welcome and entry point because there's no language to get in the way. So that's Owly. Then, hang on, I've got, oh, sure, we'll go here first. This book is illegal. This book was also on one of the awards lists for a long time. This is definitely a heavy hitter. So this is all about children trying to escape Ghana and the trauma that is happening to them in their communities. There's some really intense drawing about being on board the ship. And what happens if you are illegal and you're in trouble out at sea? And it helps put headlines that people are seeing in the news into some sort of relatable narrative. It's not easy, it's not light, it's not fluffy, but it is beautiful and it's powerful, and it allows students to engage with something that they're hearing about and start to make some sense of it. So that's illegal. And then I'm going to go to the other extreme. Well, actually, okay, if we're going extreme, I'm going to have to go here. Really, what I'm going to have to do is stop using the books to prop up my computer for a better angle so that I have them all handy. All right, so here we go. The other end is Big Nate. The gerbil ate my homework, one of a huge, long series of books. I've lost track of how many Big Nates are out there. They're hilarious. I had a very serious, studious 4th grader slumped over on the steps, helpless with laughter as he read Big Nate, apologizing for making sound in the library, which was ridiculous because it was a loud library. So we have these, and again, Maine author, which is exciting. And this very author will sometimes do pop-ins to schools to talk to kids about writing. So give me a holler if you want to know more about that. Another one, which I did not bring with me, but is just hilarious, Captain Underpants. If you guys have never seen a kid just dissolve over Captain Underpants, you're missing out. It's fantastic. Then here we have The Way of the Hive, a honeybee story. This is a really fascinating book. It explores honeybee colonies and the necessity of honeybees for us to have food. And it explores the democracy in which honeybees work. And it also explores some of the dark side. There's dung beetles. And let me tell you right now, kids love an insect that rolls a big ball of poop. Always a favorite. But it's full on accurate science told in a way that is much easier for readers to engage with. And then at the end, you have like accurate scientific diagrams. And then you have some really thick, dense text. So after you have been brought in gently with the graphic novel, there's more reading, which I stumbled across students doing this on their own. They would suddenly team up, and really strong readers would get together with struggling readers to explore the back part together. And it was a really natural partnership that was lovely. El Defo, I'm betting a whole bunch of you already know about El Defo. This is, oh, it's just so moving. So talks about kids with differences, kids who need special adaptive equipment to function, but it does so in a really engaging way. And it allows questions to be asked, which you might not want to ask an actual kid in your class as you see them with a hearing device, but you get to ask it here in the book. And the illustrations are really charming and sweet and funny. So El Defo. Another heavy hitter, Becoming RBG. So you have the entire biography of Ruth Bader Ginsburg here in graphic novel form, which is kind of amazing. And it tells a story that might otherwise be a little bit intimidating in a way that is easier to follow along with. And it involves some really intricate cartoon elements that allow you to talk about visual representation too. So for example, there's parts where it goes into a dot matrix sort of background, which differentiates from current day thinking. So you get to talk with kids about how do you set a narrative in a different space, in a different time, in a different pace. Amulet, fantasy, and I could never keep these books on the shelves. Kids just love them. There's, oh gosh, 9? How can I have forgotten how many? I think there's 9. They're beautiful. They're lush. There's an intricate story that follows the same characters. They're just great. Then you get history. Nathan Hale's Hazardous Tales. These are straight up history lessons set in graphic novel form. This particular one is One Dead Spy, a Revolutionary War tale. They also go into the Civil War, the Donner Party. So, you know, kids love a good tragedy. But they're all told in a way that brings the history to life, but that is also not overwhelming in terms of complicated words. And then this one is fascinating because it's aiming at a slightly older audience. I took this out of the teen section of my local library. And it's the story of a girl who wants to be a knight and fight for her kingdom. And it's got a slightly more complicated storyline to it. There are also graphic novels, of course, for adults, so feel free to check those out. And graphic novels for older kids. There are a lot of graphic novels exploring personal identity. And then this happens to be one of my absolute favorites, and I saved it for last in the show and tell. This is one of the Maine Student Book Award books, Cody. And it just is absolutely heart melty beautiful about the friendship between a girl and a Kodiak bear, and how the girl manages some challenges in her own life with the help of her friend, the bear. And this one won all kinds of awards. And when it came out, I knew I loved it because I thought the bear was adorable. But it reached kids in a way that is hard to define. The being sought by your friends and rescued, really deep. plot line. There are also, of course, Mouse is one of the most famous graphic novels right now. It tells the story of the Holocaust and is always on the banned books list, which is probably one of the indicators for when you should go find a book and read it, as far as I'm concerned. And there are a ton of other really amazing books out there. And I am going to bring you to the book list. So, American Library Association maintains a fantastic list of graphic novels. You can go back in time or see what's out right now and is current. Epic Reads also has a fantastic list, and teaching books. You can also find really good lists on Goodreads and on Junior Library Guild. Both of them, though, were pretty heavily associated with sales. So I chose not to include them on this particular slide, but they're still really great sources to find good graphic novels. And I just can't not throw this book in because I love it. When we talk about graphic novels, we often talk about them as a modern phenomena, something which is fairly recent. And it's true that they are definitely having a moment right now, for sure. But they're not that new. This is a really ancient book of the cosmos that dates from China. And it's an illustrated book of the cosmos, and it's just absolutely a graphic novel. It is explaining their understanding of the night sky and the heavens and the way things were working, but providing illustrations to go along with it, because it made the information that much more accessible and engaged. I'm also going to note that Maine Digital Library has an online presence. Many, many libraries maintain a catalog of not only physical books, but ebooks in graphic novel form. They're not as satisfying for anyone as an actual book in the hand, but as we all know, we have sometimes gone through periods where we can't put a physical book in the hands of a kid, and that's where ebooks are amazing. Your local library and hopefully your school library will also have a really robust graphic novel section. Osher Map Library, which is part of the University of Southern Maine, they do a fantastic program every summer for educators in grades 5 through 12. They will mail you graphic novels free of charge. And then there's a book club that meets weekly to discuss the graphic novel that you're reading. And then coming up in November, I'm very excited about this. On November 21st in Rockland, we are going to be doing a full day workshop with Merrick Bennett, who is a graphic novelist of some acclaim and renown. He is also an educator. And so he is going to spend the whole day with us working on the role that graphic novels play in literacy and how to create some in your classroom with your students. That will be open for educators, and stay tuned for the registration form. If you know you really want to do this, put a note in the chat and I will be sure to ping you as soon as the registration form opens. It's going to be a really good day. We're going to be at the Steel House in Rockland, which is a fun place to do these workshops. And then I want to point out some of the resources from the interdisciplinary instruction team. Our homepage has a lot of information on it, and I would encourage everyone to check it out. We also have a professional learning schedule up and a professional learning page, and there's the newsletter. We don't swamp you, so I would encourage everyone to sign up for the newsletter so you get the latest news. We have built and are building a whole bunch of hubs on the website, including a new hub for STEAM, numeracy, civics, and literacy, and arts and humanities coming soon. And then also there are the Engine learning experiences. So Engine is the online learning platform. Some of the courses are offered asynchronously, so you can take them at your own pace whenever you want. And others have a meetup time as well. So some of the courses are listed there. Question formulation technique I will be doing in October, so think about that one. Modern literacies, teaching with transfer, student-centered learning, human-centered learning, and concept-based instruction. And we're adding more courses all the time. And of course, we are findable online. And then last but definitely not least, I would love for all of you to take a moment to fill out the feedback form. We are always looking for ways to do things better, for new programming to bring if there's something that you're particularly interested in having. And your feedback will really help us know what to do and where to take it.